All right. So, how has your mindset and approach to training athletes changed over the years?
How was my mindset and approach to training athletes? That's a really good question. I have evolved as a coach over the last 10 or 15 years as I've come to understand the needs of the athletes in different ways. I am more of, I guess, what you'd term a player's coach. There are coaches who are real, I don't, adversarial is not the word, but sort of by the books. They're in charge and everyone does what they say. I am more like, and it's because of my personality, more of a co-coach, if you will. Maybe I just made that term up. TM. Where I like to really work with the fighters and with my athletes and accommodate their needs in all of their life, basically. I think it's important for me to understand where they're coming from, how their mindset is affected outside the gym by the people that surround them, by their upbringing, and I try and really learn that a lot more than I used to. Used to be really cookie cutter, and I think over the last 5 or 6 years I've really come to delve more into my fighter's mentality. MMA is definitely an individual sport in a team setting, if you will, or a team sport in an individual setting. I don't know, you have to figure that one out for yourself. And so all the pieces fit together, but at the end of the day, they have to perform on their own. And there are a lot of places that can go wrong in the training and the competition. And the last few years, I've really worked hard to try and head a lot of that off before it happens. As far as physical preparation, I give my fighters a lot of leeway to succeed or fail on their own. I used to be a real stickler to make sure guys were training X number of times a day, X number of times a week, and doing this and doing that. And I've really backed off that, because if they don't want to do it, if they don't want to strive to be successful on their own, I realize there's almost nothing that I can do to change that. I can yell at them, I can call them, I can go pick them up, but if they don't want to do it on their own, there's very little I can do.
All right, so
I made a lot, before, I don't mean to cut you off, I made a lot of mistakes coaching my brother. And I was Rory's primary coach his whole career, and at that point I had coached him in Forest basically, and I was coaching some young guys coming up. But I made a lot of mistakes coaching him. Part of it was because I was learning what to do, and part of it was our relationship. And so I tried not to make those mistakes anymore. He might have paid for some of those, but they worked out all right.
Okay, so moving on to more of kind of safety issues in sports. We've seen recently with the NFL, there's been a lot more concussions and the way they handle it. And just kind of what's the ethics behind of how you think the whole sport and the aspect of the sport being a contact sport is, are you more aware of it now than you were back in the day?
You talk about it as an athlete, what you see.
Well, I was at the touchdown club for the University of Georgia dinner the other day, and I don't remember a lot of things, so I certainly don't remember the coach who was speaking, but
Dan Henning.
There you go, Dan Henning, who was 40 years experience in football and in coaching, and he basically said something that we've discussed before in the past, is that when you sign up to play football, or you sign up to fight professionally as a mixed martial artist or to box, then you have basically stated that you understand the risks that are involved. Now, if a coach walks up to you and hits you over the head with a 2x4 and you get a concussion, then you probably weren't really prepared for that sort of risk. But getting punched in the head, going helmet to helmet with another football player, you signed up for that. I can't necessarily feel bad. What I can feel bad about, and where I can say, okay, well, maybe this person didn't necessarily understand because they weren't guided the right way and didn't have the proper coach, and they took more punishment and abuse than they should have. Then I can feel sorry for that athlete. When I see little 5 and 6, 7-year-old kids going helmet to helmet, and coaches cheering that on in videos online, and it wrenches my gut apart. It makes me sick, and I can't even watch it with the sound on because it just visually affects me so much. Those little kids don't necessarily know what they've signed up for. You get into high school, you might still not understand the repercussions of your actions, and if you have a coach that's like that, then again, you might not have understood what you're signing up for. But years and years of football, years and years of playing in college, and then in the NFL, or years of training, even lightly, you're still gonna, one or two are gonna get away every now and again. You're gonna get knocked out in a fight. You're gonna get a little hit a little too hard in training. You signed up for that. You shouldn't be able to sue for that, in my opinion. And then we as coaches, and I'll let Adam get into that because he's the coach who deals with that the most, and he's the one who studies it the most. We as coaches have to figure out ways to lessen that with our athletes.
Right. So 10 years ago, a normal training session would be put on the gloves, maybe headgear, put on a timer, and go. And if people got wobbled, then we called them names and they kept going. And if people were hurt, then we called them names and we kept going. And that's not 100% true, but that's the way a lot of rooms around the country work. There was this survival of the fittest mentality. Get a whole bunch of guys together. The ones that survive the daily rigors of training are the ones that are going to fight and the ones that are going to be successful. We've gotten away from that. In our room, we try and keep the head contact and the head trauma to a minimum. We very rarely go full power. We never let a guy continue training after he's been wobbled or after he's even possibly been concussed. If a fighter gets hurt in training or in a fight, we take a lot of time with them. We keep them on no contact for a lot of time, and we are very cognizant of that. The last thing I want to do is cause a fighter to come through here, have 4 or 5 amateur fights because it was something he wanted to experience, and then have lifelong damage. And there is absolutely no reason that needs to take place in the gym. And that is something, I've done interviews on this before and I've spoken about it a lot. The level of sparring needed in the gym, I believe, is a lot less than we used to believe it was. And I'm hoping that that's a change that will continue, so we don't have to worry about that. To me, MMA is not nearly as brutal a sport as football or boxing, because football is about hitting each other on every play. Boxing is about hitting someone in the head every second of a 3-minute round for 12 rounds. MMA, we have a lot of ways to win. The amount of head trauma in a fight is minimal as compared, and so there's no reason to add to it in the gym. And I think by controlling it in the gym, by controlling the way we deal with our athletes after an injury, after a possible head trauma, I think we can keep guys healthier for a lot longer. It's smart training and smart career management. There's no reason to leave the fight and the career in the gym.
So moving on a little bit, are there any main philosophies or aspects that you two disagree upon?
I don't really think there's much we disagree upon as far as coaching is concerned. Because if we did, I don't think the atmosphere in the gym would be what it is. We'd be constantly at each other. You know, there are times that we'll disagree upon a technique, but that's not a coaching thing. The way the athlete should be coached and such, that has to be. Everyone has to be on that together throughout the entire gym, not just us. Our other coaches have to be on board with that because they have athletes that they're dealing with. And I call everyone an athlete that comes in the gym. We treat everybody relatively the same. So you have just the 30-year-old, 40-year-old, 50-year-old guy who comes in a room. That coaching philosophy has to be from the top down, and everyone has to be on board with it, or else you get splinter groups, and you might have people learning things the way they're not supposed to, or experiencing things that are negative to their lifelong pursuit of the martial arts. So in that respect, we definitely don't disagree. Now, my brother would be showing a move on the mat one day, and I'd be like, hey, I think I saw that a little differently on YouTube when I was watching it. And we will get into disagreements about that, and that's all well and good, but at the end of the day, that's how we evolve in our abilities and our techniques and our skills, is by questioning. Nah, that move's not going to happen just because you saw some 50-year-old black belt who hasn't grappled in the last 20 years do it, you know? But the philosophy definitely has to be the same.
Yeah, I mean, the core philosophy of the gym, like I said before, is aliveness. And as long as all the coaches, and especially my brother and I, are on board with that philosophy, then I think everything else sort of works itself out. How we deal with individual people and how we relate with individual athletes and stuff, then we'll do that within our own personalities. But other than that, I mean, the direction of the gym, I think we're pretty much on board with it.
Okay, sweet. That was round two. We got one more.